Our speaker tonight, Anson, have you finished your snacks? You have, and your drink too, your water?
Yeah, all set.
So I'm going to read Anson's, Anson Tebbetts is our speaker tonight. He's the Secretary of Commerce since 2016. So a lot of what we do is related to agriculture in our region, right? We got some cheese, we got some maple, we have beef producers. We don't have one of our members for beef here tonight. And our history is a lot about agriculture as well. Anson grew up on his dairy farm in Cabot, where his family raised Jersey dairy cows, sheep, and ran a Vermont maple syrup sugaring operation. While farming, Anson also had a long career in broadcasting, both radio and television. An award-winning reporter and storyteller, Anson's last position was managing reporters, editors, photographers for television. Anson still lives in Cabot on his family farm, where his son Alden, a student at Middlebury College, hunts wild turkey and deer. Anson's wife Vicky enjoys foraging the land, and his daughter Adele, is that Adele? Adelaide, sorry. Also a student at Middlebury College, loves the forest and baking. A nature lover and birder, Anson's radio show For the Birds can be heard weekly on Radio Vermont. Anson, all yours.
I think I'm okay. Well, good evening, everyone. So Carol mentioned that we have to do pictures. So this is where I tell everyone I go, you got to tell your story, don't let anyone else tell your story, right? So this is where I have to document the evening. So if everyone could give me the thumbs up. All right, everyone give me thumbs up. All right, that's good. This side, everyone give me thumbs up. So, Okemo Valley, there you go. So now I have documented that you agree with everything that I just are about to say. So that you'll see that on social media.
No problem.
No problems. We know on social media everything is accurate, right? Yeah. Well, thank you for dinner. That's wonderful. Thank you for the invitation to come down here and talk a little bit about agriculture. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, the board. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the agency does, and I want to leave time for questions because I think most people will get a better understanding of what we all do if I can leave a little bit of time for questioning. So I'm just going to give you a little background of what we all do. So at the agency, we have about 140 employees statewide. 80% of our work is regulatory. So the other 20% is maybe economic development, and maybe the business office. So about 80% of what we do is regulatory. So what do we do? Water quality is one that we regulate, sanitation, food safety, dairy processing plants, and we're at the golf course. So the Agency of Agriculture also regulates the golf course, because the golf course may or may not here use pesticides. So to use the pesticides here at the golf course, they have to be certified, they have to follow certain rules and regulations. I'm assuming that's the case here. It is at most golf courses across Vermont. You mentioned the Santa train, railroads as well. So the railroad may come to us and want a right-of-way and make sure the vegetation is clear. So again, a pesticide regulation, they have to follow rules and regulations, but the Agency of Agriculture does a lot with that regulation of pesticides. The other thing we're doing now is consumer assurance with electric vehicles. Some of you may have electric vehicles and have to charge them in public areas. Well, we're in the space now of regulating to make sure you're getting what you paid for if you're being charged for that. The same is on the gas pumps as well. You'll see a little sticker next time you gas up. You'll see a little sticker. We inspect that for consumer assurance. The same goes for delis. We even go into the farmers markets and making sure that the scales are okay with the farmers market. So gas pumps, scales, the deli counter, all that. But beyond regulation, and I call this the fun part we do, is the economic development. And one of the areas, the sectors that we're really invested in is maple syrup. And we all know this region has some fantastic maple syrup producers. Vermont is the #1 producer in the country of maple. About 3 million gallons of maple is made annually in Vermont. That's about 50% across the United States. So that's pretty impressive. Think about 3 million gallons. And it's all weather dependent, very short season. Maple is changing dramatically. Every sugar house is different. Every size, scale, etc. And right to the north of us is Quebec, which is the world producer of maple. But maple's having a moment. Maple is more than just pancakes now. The trend is in barbecue sauces, maybe some hot sauces. I think our friend in Chester, right? Our friend in Chester has a wonderful maple product with hot sauces using peppers. You're seeing it used in barbecues. You're seeing it in candy. So much like dairy, where you're seeing a lot of value added, I think the trend in maple is the same. But we have to expose, a lot of the United States does not have any idea about Vermont maple. They use corn syrup. So it's a constant teaching lesson. And I just did the UVM, each year UVM does a sugar on snow party. Everyone's familiar with the sugar on snow? You boil it down and then you put it on snow or ice and it becomes like taffy, but you serve it with a dill pickle and a raised donut. The pickle gets everybody. But it's a good, we serve it for a couple of hours at UVM and all the students, and I would say 90% of them are still not really, what the heck is this stuff? What is maple? It's really kind of fascinating. So I think it's a reminder we're constantly having to introduce everyone to maple, and that goes to chefs when they cook with it, consumers, etc. And Vermont, as we know, puts a lot of maple in the mail as well. So it's another one of the early e-commerce areas that we did maple. I also want to spend a little bit of time, and we'll know exactly what the statistics are for maple come June. USDA does a survey, and they will announce in mid-June, what the season was. And most are saying either average or above average. It was a very long season. I think a lot of people were like, when is it ever going to end? And some of the people up north went way into the third week of April. So we're not too far away from that. The other major thing that we have, and we just delivered this, and I've got a few extra copies. They're in that box right there. Vermont Dairy Delivers. And this is an economic impact statement on dairy in Vermont. It's about a $5.4 billion industry. It's significant, particularly in certain counties, but all across Vermont, every size, every shape. And the trend, again, has been value added. I know you have some cheesemakers as members of this, but that's been the growth. The growth is we're consuming a tremendous amount of dairy now. We may not be drinking dairy. We may not be having it on cereal. And that's, if you think about our breakfast, the way we have breakfast now, not a lot of people sit down with cereal and pour milk on it anymore. It's kind of a grab and go society. There are still some, but the trend has been value added. So Americans are consuming cheese, butter, yogurt, even cottage cheese is having a moment now. Cottage cheese, which I've always loved, but it's really become quite trendy as a protein. So all those value added are adding up. And we have about 450 dairy farms, which is, it's not all rosy. It's been a steep decline, but we're still producing about the same amount of milk that we had many, many years ago, because farmers are very good at animal care, genetics, and some of those farms that may have sold their cows may have been moved to another farm to be raised and milked. And I'll just give you a couple statistics of that. So a decade ago, we had 95 dairy processors. So a decade ago, we had 95. In 2023, we had up to 158. So that's where the growth is. That's 63 new processors in just 10 years. So they're going, markets, and we export a tremendous amount of dairy. About 60% of our dairy has to leave Vermont. Fortunately, we have some good markets to the south of us, New York, Boston, Washington, whatever, and a lot of our products are being put in the mail. So the experience that Carol was talking about with the train, that's a wonderful thing. It's about experiences, and that's what you're doing in this region. You have to give people experiences. They remember you. They may have had cheese on the buffet or in the restaurant. They remember it. They're going to go back to their computer and they're going to order it and they're going to ship it to it. We ship meat in the mail now. We ship cheese in the mail now. We ship maple, and we specialty products as well, all going in the mail. So it's really important to our agriculture industry. And then a decade ago, we did not have water quality standards. We do now. So our farmers are really have stringent regulations of where they can plant their crops, how they manage their manure, their nutrients. Our larger farms all have to have nutrient management plans, so that dictates where they can spread, how much they can spread. And that's the other thing. This is another thing I grew up to tell people where they could spread manure. Actually, think about that. I never thought of that growing up, but someday, because we don't allow spreading from December to April, but you can ask me if I can give them an exemption. And it's very rare to get an exemption, but I have the authority. I learn new things every day, what authority I have. And one of them was when I could tell people, yes, you could spread this today or tomorrow. So it's one of those wide-ranging jobs that always amazes me. So those are a few of the highlights I wanted to share with you. But Vermont has a strong, sorry for the word brand. It does have a strong brand, but it's not without a lot of commitment. It's a rugged economy, as you all know. You're probably, a lot of you in the same business. You're relying on, margins are tight. There's been a lot of inflation everywhere. Labor is a huge issue with agriculture now. Every industry is struggling with that. We don't have enough people in the state of Vermont to do the work. And there's so many opportunities for folks now. They can do a million different things, whether it's during the pandemic, I'm sure this area had people move to the region and could bring their jobs, and that was wonderful. So we had that part of it to come here, but we still need more people, and we need to train them and get them involved in agriculture. And I do see a sense of kind of a back to the land movement a little bit. There are a lot of young people now that may not have any experience in agriculture, but they're dying to learn more about it. The ups and downs and the roller coasters, because for many it's, we talk about the downside too much. I think the rewarding side is there as well. You're outside, you're independent, and at the end of the day, you're growing something or producing something and you're feeding people. And that's what we never should lose sight about, is all our farmers are feeding people, not only Vermonters, the region, the United States, and then exporting to other countries as well. So with that, Carol, maybe some questions. If I prompted any, I'll take anything. Questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the builder of the A.M. Foster Cover Bridge in Cabot, George Spalding?
I am. This is on Cabot Plains, right? So Cabot, I live on sort of the Marshfield side, but Cabot Plains is one of the most spectacular places for a view. It's on the Joe's Pond, Danville side. So if you go through Cabot, go through the village, look for the apple orchard. If you ever want to go pick apples, it's a great place, and just keep going. And then Mr. Spalding got a covered bridge. It's a Foster, the name is Foster, A.M. Foster. Yeah, and he placed it in this field, and the most spectacular sunsets. because it looks over, is it Mansfield? It's Mansfield and everything. And you can park there. There's a cemetery just to the right. And Mr. Spalding, I believe originally was from Massachusetts, but loved Cabot. Restored a one-room schoolhouse as well, which is right nearby. But there's an apple orchard there that is only about 10 years old, and they're doing really well. They got cherries coming out. They'll have cherries. They got incredible cider donuts. Is there any cider donut people down there, Sway? Oh, cider donuts. For the train, maybe. Would be a good thing for the train. But they got to be warm, all right? Cider donuts. They do a wonderful cider donut right there as well. But that's one of our covered bridges. The covered bridge doesn't go anywhere. It just sits in the field. There's a little bit of water there. But it's spectacular sunset. If you're up that way, you can capture it.
We are with the Vermont Covered Bridge Society.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
This is the contingency here.
Wonderful.
So, only two bridges that I really like in the state was Cabot, and the southern one is Green River.
Green River. Oh, yeah. That's the long one, right? Yeah. I had a friend once that she was a biker, and she did all the cover. There was biker groups that just did covered bridges throughout the state. And I was up to Lindenville, and they've had challenges with the box trucks going through that one. But I think the Linden Institute kids, they got a wonderful welding program there, and they figured out a way to keep the box trucks from smashing that particular bridge that's just outside the village of Lindenville. So it's kind of cool.
It's saving the bridge, so I understand there's already been several trucks that hit the actual ledge.
Yeah, it's been hit a couple of times. It's kind of like the tractor trailers that kind of go through the notch and try to do that. We had one this week. You see that? That's fascinating, that one. That one did a lot of work to get through that one, but it was a $2,500 fine. GPS. A lot of people think it's GPS that leads them in, and then it's too late. So, any other questions about ag, farming, food? All right.
Over here.
Yes.
So Vermont obviously makes a lot of maple syrup for the United States, but we still have to import a lot from Canada to meet the consumer demand in the United States, the current, goings on. And there's so much untapped land in the United States, or in Vermont specifically, that's state land. Is that something that would be opening up as kind of moving forward to kind of promote the maple industry in Vermont?
Yeah, the question is about using the state or federal lands to lease trees for sap. So there's a little bit of going on with that, and it would be managed by the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Because I do see people are looking for trees, and we have people, even in the kingdom, there's a significant sugar maker that's going way down into central Vermont. And with reverse osmosis, which is taking one of the greatest technology advancements for maple, they're taking the water out, so they're essentially boiling just the sweet sugar. So that's allowed some people, they're not hauling all the sap to the sugar house and then boiling it down. So they're just they may have a reverse osmosis at the bottom of the hill, so that just they're concentrated the sweet stuff. So I think those lease agreements are really challenging with the state, from my understanding, because I have had inquiries, and there may be other competing interests as well, whether they're going to be logged or not logged. But that is one area. And if anyone has actually done an assessment of maybe one thing we want to look at is where are the trees and what's available. I just don't know if we have maps with that, but that could be a starting point for the Forest, Parks, and Recreation, because a lot of sugar makers are looking for more sap if they run out on their own trees as well. But let me follow up on that with you on where they might be and how far people would go to get their sap.
Thanks.
All right.
Other questions? Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Without
We like worms.
I heard.
We had a worm farmer.
You mentioned 8% dealing with regulation.
Yeah.
And with all the cuts coming, proposed cuts coming, I think it's safe to say that we all have to think about balancing regulation with the experience we started talking about the needs. I think we've all experienced, excuse the pun, people that come into the neighborhood and they just love the experience. But the regulation is also,
Right.
as I get older, I see more and more examples of regulations just thwarting business, more paperwork. My wife, who was retired for a couple of years, recently went back to school to help out a short period of time. She's just disgusted with the regulations. So I'm just because we've got to balance federal cutbacks. We've got to balance it. We've got to be thinking about it.
Yeah, and we try to do our common sense when we do regulate. But I will agree with you. There are a lot of regulations, and it's once they're in place, it's very hard to get them changed. For example, we have tried to have some flexibility with agritourism. So maybe events, maybe burger nights, maybe have a band or two. And we've tried repeatedly with the legislature to allow not having to go through a big Act 250 permit process for that, because it's limited. But I tell you, it is really challenging because I think everyone's worried about that 1% that may try to get through the door, and they're always worried about the 1% instead of the 99% it may help. So those things are really challenging, and that's, if we want successful farmers and we want land open, we want diversification, because they always say you got to diversify, which I think is sometimes really frustrating for everybody, because not everyone can diversify. You can't do 10 things. So you need to give them the tools to have a little bit of flexibility on those type of events. Because the argument that when we try to get flexibility was, well, just go to Act 250, it's easy to get a permit. But then, if you wanted to have a wedding, and the wedding goes past 10 o'clock, you can't have a wedding past 10 o'clock in the summer, that kind of stuff. So what kind of experience are you happening? And we all understand neighbors and having to deal with that because of peace and quiet and all that, but it's sometimes I think it's a little bit frustrating aspect of that. But we got to keep pushing for that, because we need to give people, revenues of income, so Vermont can continue to be Vermont and have some sort of ag base. And some places are now putting on property for their property. They're putting on another home because people will stay there. There's a place in Plainfield that has Highlander cows, and they sell meat at off their farm stand. They have it at the farmers market, but people come and stay, and they get to see the animals and enjoy them and take photos of them and see the sunset with them. So they saw an opportunity to put in a nice looking sort of manufactured home that sits at the base of it. So that's what they're doing. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to do that, but it's not without a lot of challenges, because then you get into water and sewer. Infrastructure. Infrastructure is so important to agriculture. You probably experience it with restaurants. Water, sewer, all that stuff is really, really important. So people have a chance, and then being connected as well. Cell service, all that kind of stuff, particularly for young people. People are not going to move to Vermont if they can't use their phones. Just not going to do it. So that stuff has to be achieved as well. And there's some really pockets in Vermont where there's still no cell service. And they're not going to move to those communities unless they can be on their phones. So. All right.
Maybe there's a few cheese producers as well in the room. How do you interact with cheese?
How do we interact with cheese? We love cheese. A couple things. You talk about regulation, so we regulate at the farm for sanitation. So if it's an operation that has animals and then they make cheese, so we're going to regulate the farm side to make sure that the milk is good, all the sanitations check the boxes, and then we're going to inspect the plants as well for safety, for food safety, and we'll do that. So those are the two pockets, and then we love to promote cheese. So we have programs either through the agency, the Vermont Dairy Promotion Council. Farmers contribute a certain amount of their milk check to that program, and that may fund trade opportunities. So, for example, some of our cheesemakers will be going to New York City. I think Kent's going, right? We'll be going to New York City to the Specialty Food, Fancy Food Show in New York. Javits Center, huge, just incredible, thousands of specialty producers will be there. And it's buyers going from booth to booth looking for something to buy for maybe their store or maybe their cheese shop. So we help underwrite some of those costs because 3 days in New York City is really, really expensive. So we have some of those. We have some trade money through USDA that we also help open up that. And then we have another thing in Vermont called the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center, which is we manage it at the agency, but it's all of New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland. And that program is funded through USDA. We manage it, but it's focused on infrastructure. So if someone needs a pasteurizer, and all this equipment is really expensive. So we may help finance that. And these are all competitive grants. Or it may be something as simple as a farmer is hurting for labor and they may want to put on a robotic milking operation. So they may want a robot to come in and milk the cows instead of the farmer doing it. And that's a trend. There's farmers that have 4 or 5 robots. The cow goes in, machine goes on robotically. They don't have to worry about the labor. They're all trained. And there may be a smaller one that has 70 cows. There's some farmers that have 70 cows. They have 1 robot. And the quality of life really changes. That's probably 4 hours that's been freed up for that farmer that they don't have to be in the barn. But it also means they might be able to attend their daughter's softball game at 5 o'clock before they would have been milking. So it's not always the bigger farms that are using the technology. It could be the smaller ones. But that equipment is really, really expensive. So those are some of the things that we try to support. But all these grants are extremely competitive because New York's the number 5 dairy country, number 5 in production. So they're a monster. Pennsylvania's right there, and then we're about 20th nationally. California's number 1 in dairy. California, big dairies, challenged by water now though, and labor, but California's number 1. New York's number 5. A lot of big dairies in New York, and they've invested a lot in their. Some new lines are coming on for milk in New York, so they're positioning themselves for processing more for that. So good. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing. We'll try to keep the regulations down if we can. Tell that to your lawmakers, though. Tell them. If you got something, you got to, and it's relentless. You got to hear it because they will listen. For the most part, they will listen to voters. And so if you got a story to tell them. If you see them, just hey, look, this is a little bit much, and anything you can do to support farming and food and not. Right now, a victory for me is not adding new regulations. That's kind of where we're at. We're like, we got enough on our plate. We don't need to do more. So, but it comes and goes.
I'll just close with saying, after living in a few different states that are strong agricultural communities, it's pretty amazing that we have the agriculture department in the state of Vermont that is truly engaged and helpful and approachable. I mean, to have the Secretary of Agriculture at our meeting here is pretty amazing. And we thank you, Anson, and your team and everything for
you do for our state, you know, to keep Vermont as a prominent agriculture state. You know, you look at other ones in the region, we're still pretty amazing what we are able to achieve in our state. Thank you.
And we don't mean to brag, but we do have really good food and drink. We really do. Because if, you know, some of you probably travel and it really is quite amazing, but it's not without a lot of commitment, a lot of expense. And that's got to be our advantage because we're not going to be the biggest in the world. Anyway, have a great rest of the night. And gosh, it's still light out. How wonderful is that?